So, Jarrod, okay, bowled a bit of spin yourself.
Not very well.
I know, and that's why I'm bringing you into it. The importance of spin when you're playing in an Ashes series. In fact, any test match, but we're talking about the Ashes because that's what's coming up. And I'll tell you my first thoughts of it, because I think the teams I played in the 90s were, I felt like we never had a spinner who could win a series. We had spinners who now and again get 5 for. Someone like a Tufnell, he'd have his day out, and it'd be absolutely magnificent, and bowl a team out in one innings, and we'd suddenly win a test match. Normally when we'd lost the Ashes. But when we played against Australia, I always felt they had a spinner, as well as good seamers, who could bowl us out consistently. If it wasn't Warne, it was McGill. So they had 2 unbelievable leg spinners. So I always felt we were against it from the off.
Do you know what? If you look at the history of spin in Australia, it's really interesting, because when they start covering their wickets, right, which is way before England does, basically off-spin dies. And so in England, you have off-spinners coming over and over again, drifting the ball, using side spin, and everyone in Australia is bowling wrist spin and bouncing it, right? And so it doesn't even make sense to bring over an English spinner on a lot of those pitches. But the reason that you bring a spinner to Australia is not really to take wickets, is it? Other than Suckling Mushtaq, I don't think there's been an overseas spinner who's been brilliant in Australia in a very long time. But you bring a spinner to Australia to soak up overs so your quicks don't get exhausted.
Okay,
right?
so why Suckling Mushtaq have success? Is that a similar case to, like, the present? Well, he's been going for seems like 25 years now. Nathan Lyon, who's got better and better, and he actually bowls better in Australia than he does anywhere else. Why is that? Is that because he gets bounced like Suckling Mushtaq?
I think Suckling Mushtaq came over to Australia when the Doosra was... People hadn't really worked it out yet, right? And remember when...
Well, I definitely hadn't when I faced him. He did me for a kipper every time, mate. But just kept running past him or hitting him straight up in the air.
And I reckon the Australians, they might have handled it slightly better than you, but they're a bit like that.
Thanks, mate.
They were struggling a little bit at that point. So I think you almost have to take him out. I think the big difference is, if you listen to Ashwin said, the more I played in Australia, the more I bowled overspin. And that's what Nathan Lyon does. So Nathan Lyon gets most of his wickets from the extra bounce. If you try and come down, the ball's dropped before you and then it's bounced up, or he hits you on the glove, and those sorts of things. Most spinners anywhere in the world are trying to get side spin. So it's automatically set up more for a wrist spinner, because wrist spinners gets more top spin and bounce.
So someone like Adil Rashid, who for some reason didn't want to play Test cricket or go to Australia, because I think, having played with him myself and captained him, I would have loved him to be in my Ashes squad. I'm not saying use him every game. I don't think he's that type of bowler. I think even this time, the way he is bowling at this moment in time, is there a spinner better than him?
I mean, he's the best spinner in England, and so you bring him over. And so the difference, and you'll know this, but the difference between finger spin and wrist spin in general is that wrist spinners put more rotations on the ball, but a lot of those rotations are overspin, right? So even when he's spinning the ball sideways, he's getting extra spin and bounce, where finger spinners can't do both. They either do one or the other, right? And so, yeah, Adil Rashid makes a lot of sense. I wonder if he's maybe a little bit too slow for modern Test cricket. Might be a slight problem, but he's not that slow, right? And he's clever.
Well, that's the biggest difference. So Adil Rashid, when he first came on the scene many years ago, as a batter who bowled a bit of spin, was someone who literally just ran in and tried to turn it as much as he can and bowl a googly 3 times and over, right? He was a genuine trying to get wickets, but he used to go around the park. I think what we've seen him develop into an unbelievable white ball bowler, because he doesn't bowl many big spinners. What I've noticed about him, though, what he does now, is he loops it a lot more to the lower end, and he risks getting it for a 6, which is not a bad thing, right? You've got to be brave. You back yourself on the bigger grounds. You lob one up and someone will hit it straight up in the air. But he's become better with his straight one, the quicker one. Not a flipper like a Warne, but it's a similar delivery.
It's like a slider, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a slider. It just hasn't got the revs on someone like a Warne at his peak. But I still think he's a terrific performer.
If you had Adil Rashid who could bat, he'd be in this side.
But he can bat. The reason he can't bat
anymore.
No, he can.
He could bat when he was younger.
Right, he can still bat. What has happened to Adil Rashid?
He's 40, isn't he?
Well, this is what has happened to him, and he happens to a lot of bowlers who can bat. They get used to batting at 10 and 11, and they give in. They don't practice like they used to. You have to have a commitment. You have to have a hunger. You have to have a practice. And you can't just go out there, even with so even now when he goes in, you see him play a shot and think, oh, my word, he could bat 4. But then, obviously, and then suddenly he goes, oh no, and you shut your eyes, don't you? Because he's now become accustomed to batting at 10 and 11, and he plays like one. And that's what happens to most of us. If you're not batting in the heat of it at 7, at 8, you've got to remember Adil used to bat 6. When I was captain, he batted 6. I told him at the start of the season he was batting 8. You're batting 6 all season no matter what. And he got me 300s. Proper player, you know?
When you played it was a long time ago.
And I played with Adil.
But what I'm saying is I think he's a bit older now. But here's the question for you is generally, as I said before, the spinners in Australia are there as a defensive option to keep their seamers fit. If you have a 5-man attack, right, it's a little bit different. You're probably best off taking your most attacking spinner if you're going to bring a spinner at all.
So we have done, right?
Yeah. Well, if he plays.
But yeah. Would you say he's the attacking spinner, and that's why he's been picked? They actually see him as a Nathan Lyon copycat who bowls in Australia, bowls high action, gives it a bit of loop, bowls outside off stump, looks to get batters through the gate, driving at him.
Off stump?
Is that why we've picked him?
I know, but does he bowl it? I think Bashir's biggest problem is he just can't land the ball where he needs to land
consistently.
Yeah,
but we've got to remember he's young.
No. I'm not saying he won't get better, but I'm saying technically he's not perfect, and so he bowls the ball down the leg side too much, which might be okay in Australia because it bounces more. And you might get catches at leg slip, right? So there is that, some of that might play, but I think if you have a 5-man attack, you can do that. Here's the thing, though, Goughy. I don't think Australia were going to play Nathan Lyon very much in this Ashes, and the reason is because the Test matches are so short.
Hang on. Really?
When Cummins was fit, right? That hurt. When Cummins was fit, what they were going to do, I think they were thinking play 4 quicks, and they're just ripping through teams with the quick bowls.
He gets Stokes out for fun, Nathan Lyon.
Oh, no. I mean, they might.
And you're not going to pick him.
I don't think they're that worried about Stokes, to be honest.
I'd like to little wager on you, but they do pick Nathan Lyon.
No, they're definitely going to have to pick him now because Cummins won't be fit, right? So they don't have a choice now. He's definitely going to play. But he used to bowl 40 and 45 overs a game. The last couple of years, he's been bowling 20 and 25 overs a game in Australia. They can't bowl him.
He's getting older, mate.
No, they don't have a time to bowl him. They've already bowled the other teams out. Look at the pitches.
Well, yeah, that's the biggest thing, though. So I think that's a big call on this because I think we've talked about this before, me and you, but the pitches in Australia this last few years, you've seen medium pace quicks, right? Not fast. We're talking
Fergus O'Neill type guys.
Yeah, you're talking the guys 83, 84 miles an hour who hit the seam at Boland, right? Just cleaning up in grade cricket because the pitchers have been responsive to swing and seam. And I've been watching this round of matches now in the Shield. Some of the deliveries, unplayable.
I think the ball moves almost as much now in Shield cricket as it does in county cricket. Like, it is ridiculous, those wickets. So when do you bowl your spinner? Right, and that's the problem for Lyon. I think the age thing. I think you got a point. I don't think that's why he's bowled fewer overs, but I think that's why he's been less effective. But they're also looking at it going, why would we give him the ball? We could just chuck it to Boland or Stark or Hazelwood. They're going to take a wicket. Whereas in the old days, it would take those guys longer to take wickets because the pitches were flatter. So if your idea is you need to take over a holding spinner, I think you're wrong. I think that probably England are more likely to play jacks than they are Bashir now because you get extra batting, and I think you only need 15 overs an innings, and if that's the case, might as well use your part-timer. Webster would have bowled.
And they got Root. So, let's be honest, Root is an attacking spinner.
In the 4th innings, yes, left-handers, definitely.
Well, he does whatever he wants, Root. He can bowl leg spin, he can bowl fast off spin, he can bowl loopy off spin, he can bowl a defensive line from around the wicket, he can bowl an attacking line from over the wicket. So Root, I think, is one of those bowlers that is kind of underrated, but he takes wickets. He can break a partnership.
He's a very different bowler than Jacks, right? So even though they're both off spinners, they're different builds. They bowl in a different way. Root's a bit more slingy and sidearm. So you do get slightly different things. I think Australia will look at their lineup, and if Webster plays, they'll be like, if Cummins is fit, do we need Lyon? Because we're going to get 15 overs out of Webster anyway. So I think both teams will be looking at it very differently. Well, we knew, for about a year and a half that Bashir was going to be the frontline spinner and Lyon was going to be automatic. Those decisions have changed because people are looking at this new ball with the reinforced seam. They're looking at these pitches, as you said, the ball's going everywhere. And they're like, where do we fit the spinner in? India kept picking 2 spinners against Australia. If they picked extra seam bowlers, they might have stolen that series off Australia, right? They weren't that far away.
But that's India's theory, though, isn't it? They're always going to go with whether it be Ashwin and Jadeja. They're the 2 dream boys.
Well, they got rid of Ashwin in the middle of that series. They were still picking 2 spinners.
Yeah, which is mad. And then they went to Washington Sundar, wasn't it? So,
but they couldn't bowl them because the innings are so short. That's the thing, right? When do you bowl spinners if you're talking about 230 being a par score, right? You don't have that break. So if you look at the history of South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia, right? Spinners never worked in any of those 3 places, right? It just doesn't work. In South Africa, it's almost never bowled. And in New Zealand, it's almost never bowled. That's because they have short innings. In Australia, you don't have a choice. You bowled them. It gets flat in Australia, and you've got to bowl for 5 sessions, right? You have to use a spinner. In South Africa, you're like, we can have Nicky Boye or JP Duminy. We don't need a real spinner.
But what Australia are good at, right? And I'm just going to tell you some of the guys I played with as spinners. I might miss a few here. So somebody like Schofield, somebody like Salisbury. So we tried the wrist spin, right? We tried a Sean Udall. We tried a Robert Croft.
Richard Dawson?
Richard Dawson, I don't think I played in a test match with him. But yeah, we tried Dawson. We tried Bats. We have tried so many. Giles became the favoured one because he could bowl a defensive line. He bowled it quite flat, and he could bowl maidens. But one thing what I found Australia do so well is, but the seamers, when we did get on top at times, believe it or not. We weren't always rubbish. Sometimes we got them under pressure, but we couldn't keep them under pressure because the spinner come on, and what the Aussies were good at is a thing I use a lot. It's called changing the momentum. So your spinner comes on, and guess what? Like the red arrows. That's what Australia do well. And I believe if Bashir plays at Perth and he comes in, say England started well, they're bowling well, and we can't overbowl Stokes, we can't overbowl Wood, we can't overbowl Archer because all 3 of them are coming back from injuries. We suddenly think Bashir's got to bowl 20 odd overs. They're going to absolutely run at him. But they are, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest, they ain't going to block it.
Do you remember Leach at the Gabba?
Yeah.
When they bowled him at the Gabba and Australia just decided they were going to try and end him. So, no, you're right. And the one advantage I think Bashir will have is that this is not a particularly attacking Australian batting lineup, is it? Like, with Mitchell Marsh not in it, because they had that point where they had like Head Marsh Carey, and you're like, well, that's actually quite a dynamic middle order. Webster's not really that attacking. Even in T20 cricket, he doesn't go. Green gets going eventually, but Green's like a semi-trailer. He takes a while. Usman Khawaja is slow. Marnus is slow. Smith is slow. So you may not have that level of attack, but a lot of those guys will step up when they see Bashir, right? Because they'll be like, we only need a couple of boundaries here.